I do want to congratulate you, first of all, on your new book. I loved reading it, Right Kind of Wrong. And I especially love the way you've structured it and how you go deep into the different kinds of failures, right? I think that's the point you were making. You mentioned early in the book about how you dealt with failure as a PhD student back in the days at Harvard, and specifically about how your hypothesis was disproven by the data. Can you talk a little bit about that? About what were you looking to find, and how the data showed up something completely different, and what
Yes.
transpired?
Yes. So thank you for asking about that. I decided, I mean, I really debated this, but I decided to open the book with that personal story rather than something from the world, to make it easier to bring out the emotion of failure. And this was what I'll later describe as an intelligent failure because I couldn't have known in advance that I would fail. But what I was looking to find was that better teamwork, and this was in the hospital setting, would lead to fewer medication errors or adverse drug events caused by human error. And um, of course, made good sense. That hypothesis made good sense to me and was one that was consistent with research that had been done in aviation cockpit crew teams. But unfortunately, or maybe I shouldn't say unfortunately, because later it turns out to be fortunate for me anyway. The data showed something different, that the better teams, based on a validated team survey, had higher error rates, not lower, right? And that was kind of um, disappointing is an understatement. I mean, it was shocking. At first I thought I'd just entered the data wrong or I'd run the correlation wrong because the sign was in the wrong direction. Um, but ultimately I was forced to think it was true. I hadn't done anything wrong. It was a true finding that better teams, according to a validated team survey, had higher error rates, not lower. And ultimately, you stop, wait, do you think they're lazy? No, they're not lazy. They're great team. Yeah. So ultimately, I was struck by a blinding flash of maybe the obvious, which was that maybe there was a problem with the data quality on error rates, right? Maybe that what we were being told were error rates were in fact, obviously, reported error rates, and that it could be that the better teams were more willing to speak up about error, more willing to report error. They understood how important it was to report it and learn from it and make sure it never happens again, and that the less good teams were much more likely to hide error. So that was my that was my hypothesis to interpret the unexpected failure result. And I do in the book describe this in more detail, but through a series of follow-on analyses and explorations and then subsequent research, ultimately, I think that's a fairly strong interpretation of those results.